Okay, I think I actually have a plan this time. Honestly, I thought the tattoo would be funny. I'm kind of done testing things out. I'm just gonna stick with what I know, and that's gonna be gouache paint. It's a funny word to say, honestly. It doesn't sound like a real word. Essentially, it's just glorified watercolor. That's really all it is. It's just nicer watercolors. Yeah, it's probably more expensive than what it's actually worth. And for all the highlights, I just use a regular acrylic paint. You just need very little at a time. And I'm pretty much just reusing the water that I'm using for my gouache paint, just to thin it down a little bit. And that really lets me build up layers at a time. But you really don't know what it's going to look like until you dry it, because sometimes it dries really light. And so right here, something very similar to the last page, just adding a little bit of color to the background. You usually go with the darker color. This is going to help separate that image from that page. And because I forgot last time, I'm going to make sure to actually weather the page this time. So the new idea is I'm going to weather the page first and see if that UV finally holds. And on this page, I'm actually going to be adding a little bit of green to that page. Almost like it's going to have like little grass stains. Because to me, he probably actually sketched this one out in the forest. Can't imagine he took those mushrooms home. So unlike the previous page, these mushrooms look like they're more sketched out, opposed to the more finished product of the previous page. So I'm going to keep this one a little bit more rough looking. Now this might be a bad idea, but I'm gonna try to add a couple different shades of brown and yellow just to get a little extra color on that page. Otherwise the color on the previous page just won't match with this one. And it'll be very obvious that I used two different type of materials here. Hopefully no one thinks this is mold. And right here I'm just retouching that green so that it's a little bit more visible on that page. Gotta make sure to add some weathering on top of the drawing itself. Oh, whoops, hang on, I'm gonna clean my brush. I'm gonna use some clean water and that's dirty, okay. Let me see what I can do. And we're just going to sketch out the line that shows the height of the gnomes. Going to write out all the words. And again, just so we stay that consistent red, I'm going to use Sharpie every once in a while just to have that red consistently throughout the book. And so similar to the eyeball page and the vampire bat page, I'm going to keep the words here really sketched out, opposed to that nice brush pen that I used for the previous page. Gonna add in the spacer for where it says leaf blower, and I have gone back and forth if I should add the dipper parts or not, but I think I'm gonna cheap out on it if I don't add it. So right here, just finishing off the words on the bottom of the page. And now we can start mixing some paint. And the reason I'm using acrylic paint is because if I use any type of gouache or watercolor, it's gonna have a transparent look to it, and I really kind of want to cover that question mark the same way it is in that Journal 3 book. So here, just trying to be very careful, because acrylic paint doesn't really come off all that easy, especially on paper. And so, it's probably a bad habit, but one of the best methods that I've come across for keeping your hand more steady is I'll hold my breath in between brush strokes. Probably not the best idea, but it works out for me. And so right here, that's where I'm going to be going over that question mark, and the acrylic paint layers really nicely on top of this. Now I'm going to try to make it look like a marker to scratch this out, but I'm probably going to have to buy a paint marker for later parts in the book. But for right now, acrylic paint will work just fine. Just going to retouch up any highlights that got washed out, and this is just so that drawing sticks out from that page. You want it to blend, but you don't want it to blend too much where you can't even see it anymore. And then here I changed my mind because I used the brush pen, but again, I don't think he would have had any type of brush out there. So I'm just going to scratch it out a little bit with the pen, just so that it doesn't look too nice. How to make sure to keep your workstation clean. And this part, totally my bad. I've had such bad luck with this UV paint that I genuinely didn't think it was going to work. And surprise, surprise, it worked perfectly fine. The only problem is I didn't really spell anything out nicely, so half of it's not really legible. So I'll keep an eye out for that next time. Okay, this is just because someone asked me. On the spine of the book, yeah, it is brass. It's going to be 30 gauge. And on the back of the book, it's just fake torn leather. There's actually nothing's ripped on this book. And I stole that leather from my spare journal. And that's what it looks like on the other side. You'd never see that.